Chapter 7, The Practice of Pranic Healing. The use of the hands in healing seems to be the result of an instinctive tendency of the race. The mother naturally places her hands on the head of the child who runs to her with a story of a fall, or hurt, and the child seems to be quieted and relieved by the application of the mother's hands. How many times do we see and hear mothers relieving their children in this way, saying, "Now, dear, it is all right, mother has made it all right, now run away and play," and the child departs, its tears drying on its cheeks. Or, if any of us hurt ourselves, how natural it is to place the hands on the part, and getting relief in that way. The curing of headaches by the application of the hands is quite common, and the touch of the hand of the nurse brings relief to the sick person. And these simple movements, almost instinctive in their nature, form the basis of the practice of pranic healing. The process is so simple that it scarcely needs to be taught, although in this book we shall present to your attention some of the best methods practiced by those who have attained proficiency in the science of this form of healing. The principal means of conveying vital force or prana, in healing, are known as 1. Gazing, or transmitting by the eye, 2. Passes, or transmitting by the hands, and 3. Breathing, or transmitting by the breath. All of these methods are efficacious, and, in fact, all may be used conjointly with the others. Inasmuch as the transmission of the vital force is largely mental, and as the eye is a well-known channel of conveying mental force, it follows that the eye may be advantageously used in conveying or transmitting vital force in healing. In the process of healing, when passes are being made over the affected part, the healer will find that it will increase the effect if he will look intently at the part being treated, and in so doing concentrate his mind, and will that power be transferred to the part, and the disease cells be given strength to properly perform their work. Many healers use the breath, during healing, with excellent results. It is usually applied by breathing directly upon the affected parts, in which the warm breath seems to have a wonderfully stimulating effect. It is also applied by breathing upon a piece of flannel applied directly over the affected part, in which the flannel retains much of the heat, and soon grows too warm for comfort. These forms will be noted as we proceed. But the principal means of transmitting the vital force, in this form of healing, is by the use of the hands, by means of passes and manipulations. We shall consider the process of making passes, first, and will then take up the several forms of manipulation. The position of the hands in making the passes may be described as follows. Hold the hands well apart, with the fingers extended and separated. If your patient be seated, raise your hand above his head, and then bring them down before him, slowly and gradually, until you finish with a sweeping motion about the knees. When the pass is completed, swing the fingers sideways, as if you were throwing water from them, and then bring up the hands with fingers closed, forming the upward movement, along the sides of the patient, with the palms of the hands toward his sides. Then, when the hands reach over his head, again bring them down in front of him, with the fingers extended. By keeping the idea that you are bathing him in a flow of vital force, which is pouring from your finger ends, you will soon acquire the power motion, and, after all, each healer has his own favorite motions, which come to him instinctively. The downward motions of the hands bring a restful feeling to the patient, while an upward movement in front of the face causes a feeling of wakefulness and activity. There are a number of variations in the several passes, etc., which we shall now consider. The student is advised to acquaint himself with the various movements, that he may not appear awkward when he practices upon some person desiring relief. Familiarity with the movements imparts a confidence that cannot be acquired otherwise, and besides, it leaves the mind of the healer free from bother about details, and enables him to concentrate his attention upon the work of healing. Longitudinal passes are passes made in a downward direction along the body, such as we have mentioned above. They are made along the part affected, whether that part be the head, chest, limbs, or any special part of the body. They are always made downward, and never upward. As we have said above, the idea to be kept in the mind is that you are pouring out a stream of vital force from the tips of your fingers. Your fingers must be spread out, as above stated, and the palm must be underneath. The movements must be down, with fingers extended, but the upward movements must be made along the sides of the patient, with fingers closed, and palms turned toward the sides of the patient. No special distance is to be observed, this matter being left to your instinctive sense, which will soon inform you as to the right distance, which will be found to be much nearer in some cases than in others. When you feel that the distance is just about right, then be satisfied that you have caught the proper distance at which the best effects may be produced. In a general way, however, it may be said that a slow movement, at a distance of say 3 or 4 inches from the body, produces a sense of comfort, rest, and relief. A rather more rapid movement made at the distance of say 1 foot, seems to have a more stimulating effect, and causes a sense of activity and energy in the parts. A still more stimulating effect is obtained, when the passes are made more rapidly and vigorously, at a distance of say 2 feet from the body. These last mentioned passes, tend to stimulate the circulation, and to arouse activity in sluggish organs. Transversal passes are passes made across the body or part. They are made by turning the hands so that the palms will be sideways and outward, instead of inward. This will require a peculiar turning of the wrist, but the position will soon become easy. When the hands are in the right position, sweep them out, sideways, before the body or part, and in bringing them back, reverse the palms so that they are inward, and facing each other, instead of having their backs to each other. These passes have been found to be very efficacious in loosening up the affected parts, where congestion has occurred. It is often well to give this form of treatment, before giving the regular longitudinal passes. A valuable form of treatment, in some cases, is had in what is known as palmar presentation. This is accomplished by presenting the palm of the hand to the affected part, at a distance of about 6 inches, or even a little nearer, and holding it there for several minutes. This is usually performed with one hand alone. It has a stimulating and strengthening effect. Akin to this is what is known as digital presentation, which consists in extending and presenting the fingers of the right hand toward the affected part, at a distance of 6 inches, and holding them there for several minutes, allowing the vital force to flow from the ends of the fingers into the affected part. In some cases, the best results may be obtained in this manner. A variation of digital presentation may be effected by what is known as rotary presentation, which consists in holding the hands as above stated, for a moment or two, and then beginning a rotary movement of the hand, at the distance of 6 inches, from left to right, in the same direction as the hands of a watch. This is quite stimulating. Another variation is what is known as perforating, which is accomplished by giving the fingers a twisting movement, just as if they were boring holes in the body of the patient, at the distance of 6 inches. This movement is very stimulating, and stirs into activity parts that are sluggish or congested. It is apt to produce a feeling of warmth in the part treated. We wish to call attention to the fact that in these presentation treatments, the different forms vary in force. For instance, palmar presentation is the mildest form. Then comes digital presentation, which is considerably stronger. Then comes rotary presentation, which manifests a considerably higher degree of energy. Then comes perforation, which is the strongest of all. Very good results may be obtained in certain cases, by what is known as the application of the hands, which consists in merely placing the hands, the palms of the hands, of course, directly upon the flesh over the affected part, and holding them there for several moments. Then removing them, rub the palms briskly together, and replace them on the part. Repeat this a number of times, and marked results will be apparent. This is a favorite treatment for headaches, and in fact, may be used in the treatment of almost any form of trouble, changing the position of the hands in order to suit the emergencies of the case. In cases of neuralgia, etc., this form of treatment is found valuable in relieving the pain. Stroking is a form of treatment that is very beneficial in directing the circulation, and equalizing it when there appears to be a tendency toward imperfect circulation, etc. It has a sedative, soothing effect, and is a very good method to use in winding up, or terminating a treatment. Stroking should be applied by bringing the tips of the fingers in a very light contact with the body of the patient, over the affected parts or over the entire body. It should always be performed in a downward, or outward direction, and never in an upward or inward direction. It should be performed in one direction only, and not to and fro. The tips of the fingers are to be moved gently over the body, with a very light contact, not even the weight of the hand being allowed to bear upon the patient. Lightness, gentleness, and airiness, are the words best describing the movement. A little practice will give the student the right movement. If you desire to stroke the entire body of the patient, It is well to divide the process into two distinct treatments, viz., 1. From the head down to the waist, and 2. From the waist down to the feet. In giving the general stroking treatment to the whole body, it is well to devote considerable attention to the chest and abdominal region, in order that the organs be stimulated, and their magnetism equalized. It is well, also, to remember that the old and tried principle of rubbing is but another mode of communicating vital force, or prana. This form of treatment is as old as the race, and has been practiced in all times, and by all peoples. Alpini reports, in his work entitled, De Medicinae tilde Broken Bar Egyptiarum, that the Egyptian priests were adepts at certain mystical and medical rubbings, which form of treatment was used by them in curing chronic diseases. Hippocrates held rubbings in high favor, and evidently employed them very frequently. He has written as follows: a doctor ought to know many things, he should not be unacquainted with the benefits to be derived from rubbing. With its application quite contrary effects may be produced. It loosens stiff joints, and gives tone and strength to those which are relaxed. Celsus, nearly 2,000 years ago, was a vigorous advocate of this method of treatment, and in his books he devotes much space to this form of vital treatment, and incidentally proves that it was known and practiced long before his time. In ancient Rome, rubbing was a favorite form of treatment, and was employed regularly by the wealthy, in order to keep in good condition, a practice that is followed by many wealthy people of our own times, under the name of massage, etc. Alexander of Tralles, a Greek physician of the 6th century, was an initiate in the mystic rubbings, and incorporated it in his practice. He claimed that it helped to throw off morbid matter, and calmed the nervous system, and facilitated perspiration. He also held that it tended to calm convulsions, and was efficacious in a number of complaints. He wrote much on the subject, and agreed with Hippocrates that these secret rubbings should be imparted only to sacred persons, and not allowed to become the property of the profane. Peter Borel, the physician to Louis XIII, of France, reports that Wandigst, a clerk of the court at Nismes, healed multitudes of people by rubbing their limbs. And in our own time, massage is a deservedly popular form of treatment, and the new school of osteopathy is growing in favor. In both of these forms of practice, outside of any particular virtue due to the particular merits claimed by the respective practitioners, there is a great benefit derived by the transmitting of vital force from healer to patient, whether the practitioner admits this to be the case or not. In rubbing for the purpose of stimulating the parts by vital force, the healer should be gentle in his movements, force not being desirable or necessary, as the effect is gained by the passing of vitality to the parts, not by the mere manipulation. In applying this form of treatment, the palm of the hand, and the lower part of the fingers, should be used. The tips of the fingers, and the end of the thumb should be turned back. Healers having a fleshy lower part of the thumb, may use its palmar surface effectively in this treatment. The movements should be made downward. Some practitioners use a slightly different movement from that above indicated, inasmuch as they make a peculiar pressure with the flat ends of the fingers, following after the pressure of the palm of the hand. Students may follow either plan, as may seem preferable to them. Some healers claim to get the best results from this employment of the finger ends, while others carefully avoid the use of same. In each case it has been noticed, that the particular form of treatment is used because the healer feels that the vital force is best conveyed by his particular form of treatment. It seems to be a matter of feeling on the part of the healer, and this peculiar feeling is a safe rule to follow, and it manifests itself to all persons after they begin to give treatments. Another form of treatment, known as rotary motion, has been found to be very efficacious, by a number of healers. It consists in a circular rubbing movement of the hand and fingers, as above described, over the affected parts. The movements should always be made in the direction of the movement of the hands of a watch, and never in a reverse direction. This movement produces activity of the cells, and is useful in cases of sluggish functioning, etc. Another form of treatment is known as kneading, and is found valuable in cases of stiffened muscles, rheumatism, etc., in which the trouble is local and not organic. Kneading is accomplished by grasping the muscles or tissues, and working them against the adjacent surfaces. It is composed of 3 different forms, viz., surface kneading, palmar kneading, and digital kneading. Surface kneading is practically a pinching movement, and consists in grasping the skin firmly between the thumb and forefinger, and then lifting it up a little, and then releasing it and letting it fly back to its normal condition. The two hands are used, alternately, the one picking up the skin as the other drops it, the surface being gone over in a systematic manner. This is quite a stimulating treatment, and is very beneficial in cases of poor circulation, etc. Palmar kneading is performed with the whole hand. The healer grasps the flesh, or muscle, with the palm of his hand, with fingers close together, and the thumb out. Do not use the thumb, but grasp the flesh between the palm of the hand, and the fingers, the lower part of the palm, called the heel of the hand, and the fleshy part of the thumb being used in the movement. Hold the flesh firmly, and do not allow it to slip. Knead deeply, so as to reach well into the muscles and flesh. The muscle or flesh should be thoroughly worked, and yet not sufficiently to produce soreness. Do not use too much force, but be gentle and yet firm. Use the hands alternately. There are a number of variations of this movement, which will come to the healer as he practices. He will feel that his hands are alive, and he will feel instinctively the best way to impart that life. Digital kneading is performed by grasping the flesh between the finger and thumb and gently rubbing it against the other flesh, or bone. In cases where stimulation is thought advisable, one may give forms of percussion treatment, of which several are here mentioned. In giving this treatment, the wrist should be kept flexible, and loose, a stiff wrist being guarded against. The percussion should be elastic and springy, avoiding all roughness or bruising. The first method of administering percussion may be called the pounding movement, which consists in striking the body with the inside flat surface of the half-closed fist, the heel of the hand and the closed ends of the fingers coming in contact with the flesh. The second method of administering percussion may be called the slapping movement, which consists of a chopping movement of the hand, which is held open with the fingers held together, the blow being made with the little finger side of the hand being likened to a butcher's cleaver employed in chopping. The fingers are held loosely together, coming together in a vibratory movement when the blow strikes. The third method may be called the slapping method, in which the hand applies a slapping or spanking blow, the fingers being held rigid. The fourth method may be called the clapping method, in which the hand is held in a hollow shape, so as to give forth a hollow sound, the position being similar to that employed by some people in a theater when they wish to make a loud hollow sound with their hands, in applauding. A little practice will perfect one in this movement. The fifth method may be called the tapping method, and consists in holding the tips of the fingers of each hand together, and then tapping the body, using the hands alternately. A favorite method of administering pranic or vital force treatments is what is known as the vibrational treatment, and consists of a series of vibrating movements of the healer's hand. The fingers are usually employed in giving this treatment. The fingers are placed firmly over the part to be treated, and then a fine trembling or vibrating movement is communicated to the hand by the muscles of the arm. The movement is acquired by practice, and is somewhat difficult at first. It is a most powerful form of treatment, and the patient feels it like a current of electricity. You must not press upon the body with your wrist, and no more than the weight of the hand should be felt by the patient. When the vibrational treatment is properly applied, the vibrations should permeate the region treated, so that if the other hand be placed under the body, the vibrations should be perceptible. Some teachers have instructed their pupils in this form of treatment, by placing a glass of water on a table, and instructing the student to make the vibrational movements on the table. When the proper motion is acquired, the water will merely quiver in the center, and not move from side to side. We urge the student to give the necessary time and attention to vibrational treatment, as when once acquired it will be found wonderfully efficacious. The breath treatment has been used by many healers with wonderful effect. This form of treatment, also, has been known from prehistoric times. Arnabi informs us that the Egyptians used this method in the treatment of disease with great success, and some claim that it was superior to stroking, or laying on of the hands. Merklin, in his Tractatus Medicophysis, tells of a case in which a young child, apparently lifeless, was restored to life and strength, by the breath of an old woman. Boral tells of a sect in one part of India who cured sickness by this method, and there are in India today certain priests who breathe on the sick, and seem to impart new life and vigor to them. Boral, who lived about 1650 AD, tells of a case in which a servant brought to life the apparently dead body of his master by breathing upon him, and adds, quaintly, Is it astonishing that the breath of man should produce such results? When we read that God breathed into the body of Adam to give him life, it is a fraction of this divine breath which even today can bring back health to the sick. In Spain there are persons called ensalmadores, who heal by the saliva and by the breath. There are two general methods employed by healers in breath treatment. The first is generally known as hot insufflation, which consists in placing over the affected part a clean towel or napkin, and then pressing the half-opened mouth close up to the body, so that the breath cannot escape. Then breathe slowly but firmly, as if you were causing the breath to penetrate the body. The towel will become very warm, and the patient will plainly feel the heat. Another form of giving this treatment is to hold the lips at a distance of nearly an inch from the body, and to breathe upon it just as one does in winter to warm his hands. The second plan consists in puckering up the lips, and blowing the breath from a distance of a foot or more, just as if you were trying to blow out a candle. This has a calming effect, and may even produce drowsiness. It is also useful in clearing a congested head, caused by overstudy, etc. Treatment by the eye is also much in favor by some healers, who use it in the following manner. They allow their gaze to sweep over the persons or the affected part, and literally bathe the patient in their rays. Vital force is oftentimes imparted by means of intermediate objects, such as handkerchiefs, etc., which have been magnetized or treated just as if the person themselves were being treated. To treat or magnetize an object, such as a handkerchief, etc., the healer must make the passes over it, until he feels that it is surcharged, when he may discontinue his efforts. The object, when worn by the patient, seems to radiate its magnetism gradually until after several days it seems to be exhausted. Some magnetize the object by holding it between their hands for a time. In giving the several treatments, it is well to always conclude by giving the stroking treatment, before described. This leaves the patient soothed and calmed down, and quieted. Never fail to quiet down the patient after a treatment. These things will soon come intuitively to the healer. And after all, there is something that cannot be taught except by one's own experience. And no two healers follow just the same methods. Do not be afraid to follow your intuitive sense in this direction.